Hey, what's going on everybody, Mala here, and since this is our first smartphone review, I thought it was going to be an opportune moment to ask you guys this. How good or great can a product be before pricing is out the window and our perception of its quality makes us compare it to other stuff that's not exactly in the same league, that are playing a different game? Did it make sense? It will, I promise. But just to get something out of the way, OnePlus has been upping their game consistently, one iteration at a time, and the 3T has been at the top since its release for very good reason. It's an amazing device. And yeah, all the hype may now be around the new OnePlus 5 because June 20th is right around the corner and they're gonna unveil it finally on that date. But still, there's way too little missing and the overall experience with the 3T is impeccable. I have absolutely no gripe whatsoever with recommending it. Okay, so I've been using the OnePlus 3T for a little over a month, almost two, and I'm loving it. Definitely not thinking about going back to my previous phone at the time. But you see, I've been an iPhone user since 2008. And yeah, I've been excited about stuff that Android brought to the table before, but the whole experience, the entire package, it didn't click for me back then. So I stuck with iOS. And truth be told, if iOS hadn't booted iTunes out the door a couple of years back, this conversation might have happened earlier. Anyway, it was that streamlined, uncomplicated, seamless, easy experience. But at the same time, Android was getting a lot better at those things, while still keeping all that openness that enthusiasts love so much. And then in 2016, the landscape changed in a pretty meaningful way, I think. On one hand, you had the Pixel with that holy crap camera, and even the iPhone 7, which was finally released with a lot of long-awaited features that every iPhone user craved for, like water and dust resistance, at the expense of the headphone jack, RIP. And in the other corner, we had OnePlus, who had grabbed attention with the OnePlus 1 and the X and the 2 because of their, super beefed up specs for relatively low prices, like $299 for the OnePlus 1. And they learned from the quirky mistakes and little weirdnesses that happened with those models, and then released the OnePlus 3 back in June 2016. Great camera this time, awesome software, great build, basically the entire package, and still a very competitive price at $399. It did keep true to being a flagship killer as its predecessors, but at $399 people started saying that it wasn't as much of a flagship killer because of the pricing. But from the first one, every iteration got a little bit of a price bump to bring new stuff and new evolutions to the table. So I think it's understandable, and it's still a budget phone at $399 compared to everything else. And because OnePlus knew that they had nailed the experience there, they decided to upgrade it again with the OnePlus 3T in late 2016. This one is the Midnight Black edition, so it's an early 2017 phone, but it's basically the same phone. Alright, so spec sheet checklist just for completeness' sake. The OnePlus 3T comes with a Snapdragon 821 and a higher clock than the Pixel, 6 gigs of RAM because they can, Adreno 530 GPU, loads of sensors, including the fastest fingerprint reader I've ever tried, even compared to the newest iPhones. This thing is absolutely insanely fast. USB Type-C, dual SIM tray, 3.5mm audio jack, and the frankly almost irresponsibly fast dash charging, which is still the fastest charge-recharge speed on the planet. The OnePlus 3 had a pretty good all-day battery life, and the 3T kept the same design, dimensions and weight, it's pretty thin, with a 13% larger battery inside, going from 3 to 3.4 thousand milliamp hours. There's no support for expandable storage here, but the OnePlus 3T comes with a 128 gig option, just in case you go really nuts with both front and back 16 megapixel cameras. The 3 had an already pretty good selfie shooter with an 8 megapixel sensor, but they decided to upgrade it to a 16 megapixel one because why not? There are other things too, like the alert slider, the no bloat software on top of super stock Android, and it's still packed with little tricks and features. A great 1080p screen that's just high resolution enough for a 5.5-inch display, and the absolute phenomenal performance. And when I say phenomenal performance, bear in mind that this is a $439 phone that went up against basically every flagship device, including those upwards of $800 like the S8 and the Pixel XL, and it still beat them. It beat every flagship in 2016, and so far in 2017 it still hasn't been exactly dethroned. Okay, spec sheet tour is over. Let me nitpick a little bit real quickly. The main camera is great, I really like it, but it can't capture 4K video for longer than 10 minutes at a time. It's not something that most people are going to be angry or, it's going to bother them about, but I've been recording all my videos with smartphones from the beginning, and my previous iPhone 6s Plus, recording this video right now, doesn't have that limitation. Secondly, it's still on the camera. The optical image stabilization kind of, I don't know, maybe it's on the spec sheet, but they forgot to put it in the phone, because it flat out doesn't work most of the time for me. Third, there are no stereo speakers. There's just this bottom facing one, which is not horrible, it's not terrible, but it's not exactly great. Listen to it yourselves. Fourth, and this might be even more nitpicky than the rest of them, but the home button doesn't look like the rest of the front of the phone. It's made out of ceramic, so it's super scratch resistant, but come on, I don't know, maybe it's just my iPhone using side, expecting everything to look like one slab of the same material. And lastly, there's no water or dust resistance in this premiumly built device, which is annoying. But it brings us to the question that I threw at you guys right at the beginning of the video. How great can a product be before our perception of its quality makes us compare it to stuff that's on another league, like comparing oranges to pineapples? The 3T is so good at basically everything other flagships do that when it doesn't do something, or when it doesn't excel at something, it seems like a glaring flaw instead of a debatable compromise for them to keep the low prices at $439. And take water and dust resistance and wireless charging for example. Most flagships going for $600, with their bigger versions going usually north of $800, and those bigger phones are the competition to this one. They usually come with either one or the other, but they cost $800. Is it that much of a glaring flaw for something that costs $439 not to have those things? Or is it even more of an issue if something costs all that much and still doesn't bring either of them to the table? Maybe this mindset going into the OnePlus 3 is what made the whole experience such a joy for me, because again, I was coming from the blend world of iOS, where there's no personality to everybody's devices, and all that exclusivity that Apple had with the streamlined experience across devices and stuff like that. It's not exclusive to Apple and hasn't been for a little while. In fact, I was surprised with how easy and seamless it was to, make the jump, and how Android basically delivered all that to me in a different way, with all the other devices that I already owned also being compatible with everything else. Plus all those little tricks and features that I mentioned before on Oxygen OS, like drawing on the screen to bring up the flash or the camera or other options, all that made the experience with the 3T to be really fast, fun, fluid, and intuitive. Plus, the commitment on delivering speedy updates to the system meant that all the new features from Nougat 7.1 were readily available as soon as I got this, and the long press features made me not really care and not really miss 3D Touch from my previous iPhone. But to be completely honest, the haptic engine on the iPhones is no nonsense the best around compared to every single smartphone on the market. There's no denying that. So this is what we're at. This is one of those circumstances where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. All those hardware positives and software positives and the super competitive pricing, all that put together makes what the 3T experience is. A very, very little compromises experience that balances out an overall amazing device. OnePlus did a really good job. And let's be honest, silver, gunmetal, gold, those colors may let you brand a smartphone as having a boring look or design. But when it looks like this, Flagship Killing is definitely sexier in matte black. See, in the end it did make sense. Kind of. Well, this was our first smartphone review, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave any comments or suggestions down below, and like and subscribe if you feel like it and if you haven't already. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.